Hi everyone, it's Ardith, and today I've done some selective stenciling with a geometric stencil from Altenew to create a modern, masculine Christmas card. I started with an A2 panel of white cardstock and the Altenew Diamond-builder Stencil. There are 4 ways you can blend ink through this stencil: front, back, up, and down. And when you blend ink through the stencil all 4 ways, it creates an almost 3-dimensional pattern of diamonds that's really fun. Here's the first try I had with this stencil. I used 4 colors so that I could get a good understanding of how it worked. I placed the stencil down on top of my cardstock so that one of the diagonal lines started at the top center of the panel and extended down to the right. It's easy to find the center by using the grid on my Make Art workstation. I used the magnets to hold down the stencil while I got out some 1-inch Post-it tape to mask the edges, so I don't get ink in areas I don't want it. The right side is easy. There's lots of space between the rows, but on the left side, the tips of the next row are right up against the areas I need to include, so I had to be pretty careful placing that tape down. This stencil has pretty big regular shapes, so I didn't bother with pixie spray to hold it down. The magnets did a really good job. To make this card really cool, I'm going to make my tree gray, and I'm thinking 3 of the turns of the stencil will be with light gray, and then the bottom left part of the diamonds will be dark gray. I'm thinking that will help with the 3D look of the pattern. Of course, you can choose any colors you would like. I'm using my scrapbook.com dome blenders to put the ink down, just trying to get even coverage over the exposed areas. And once I'm done with that, I need to flip the stencil over to get the shapes going in the opposite direction. I gave the stencil a clean with a baby wipe and I dried it with a soft cloth so that I won't smudge ink on my panel. And then I flipped the stencil and carefully lined it up for my second go-round. I used the other edges of the Post-it tape, again being careful to get it placed exactly right along that one edge that doesn't have a lot of space. Then I blended the ink through. This time I need to turn the panel so the top is now at the bottom, so I don't need to clean it. Again, I used the pattern already on my cardstock to help me line it up, and I put the tape down for my 3rd round of Twilight blending. After that, I did have to clean and dry the stencil because now I'm flipping it over again for the final round of blending. Once I had it lined up, I came in with the blackjack ink. This is a darker gray, and as I said, it will add some shadow and make the pattern look a little more 3-dimensional. You can really see my tree taking shape now, and the pattern is really neat. To add even more dimension, I used a sponge dauber to blend more blackjack ink just in the bottom of each of the shapes in this turn. This will create even more shadow and hopefully even more of a 3D look. Okay, so now my tree is looking great, but I want to add some bright festive color. I lined up the side of my tree on my mat to help me mask it off with just a small white border before I did any ink blending. I've cut out all the close-up of the back of my big head while I got close enough to see what I was doing, and here's the result. Then I grabbed Rouge and Samba inks from Catherine Pooler Design. I'm loving the contrast between these 2 reds this year, and they blend beautifully too. I put Rouge near the bottom and I used the Samba at the top. I'm wishing now that I had brought the Rouge up a bit higher, and you'll see why in a minute, but at this point I really didn't have the final layout of my card planned out. When I had the one side done, I flipped the panel, lined up the side of the tree again, and then put down the tape to create that white border before repeating the same ink blending process with the red inks. Then I took a little break while I thought about how to finish the card, and I ended up trimming down the tree panel to almost a square. I also cut a narrow white mat to match the white borders in the tree, and I glued them together. I put the panel onto a gray card front for spacing, and for my sentiment I chose an all-caps Peace stamp from Peaceful Wreath. I prepped my cardstock with an anti-static pouch, and then used my Mini Misty and some Wow embossing ink to stamp the sentiment twice under the tree panel. I sprinkled Wow bright white opaque embossing powder over the stamped sentiment, tapped off the sentiment, and then I heated it with my heat gun until it was melted and smooth. Then I went back in and I stamped it again so I could add more powder and heat it again. As it turned out, I ended up stamping it slightly off, but it was slightly enough that it actually just thickened up the letters without causing someone to think they were seeing double. Let's just call that a happy accident, shall we? Then all that was left to do was to pop up the tree panel with some foam tape and add some ornaments. I chose raspberry jewels from Pretty Pink Posh, and I used liquid glue and a jewel picker to place 6 of the largest jewels in the center of each diamond. These add a perfect little touch of sparkle on this otherwise very masculine card. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love clean graphic design like this and pops of bold color, and I think this has a really fun and artistic look. Product links are below in the description and also on my blog. Thanks so much for stopping by. See you next time.